Hello, this is John Maggiore with MaggioreOnBowie.com, and I'm here with Pete Farrugia, who is a professional guitar player and teacher from the London, England area, who I'm very, very excited to be talking with today. Pete posted a video, a cover of David Bowie's Driving Saturday, which I selected as cover of the week on April 15th, 2024. Cover of the Week is a weekly feature I have on the blog where I identify what it is, a cover of the week, a cover of a Bowie song that I like. And when I got to Pete's cover of Driving Saturday, it is as simple a video as it could be. It's a guy with a guitar. And so I wasn't really paying too much attention to it until I started to hear it. And I just lit up. I mean, it's such a joyful, wonderful rendition of the song. And I watched it again because to my untrained ear, what I thought you were doing was playing a ukulele. And
I actually was playing a ukulele.
oh, you were? Okay.
And here it is.
There it is.
Yeah. So here's a guitar. Here's a ukulele.
I'm learning already.
And I think the reason why I chose the ukulele was because I was filming it in portrait mode on my iPhone, and it's just easier to fit in the frame.
Yeah, well, that was great. I mean, the sound was terrific, and
Thank you.
I'll finish the introduction, but I just want, I really like the song. I like Bowie's version of the song. I thought you did a great job with it,
Thanks.
and I associated it with going to the drive-in movies, and your performance I thought was just joyful and was happy, and I sort of forget that it's actually a post-apocalyptic song, that the theme is about people who forgot to, I'll say, relate to one another, and they have to be reminded by watching old movies. So the theme of the song is actually depressing, but your
Yeah.
performance was uplifting, and it made me so happy. I thought, this is a guy I want to talk to. So let's start with that, and we'll cover
Yeah.
teaching guitar and your playing and growing up in London. But let me start by asking you. So, what inspired you to cover this song and post it on social media?
Right. Well, earlier that same day, I had been teaching Driving Saturday to one of my guitar students, one of my clients, and that was a Zoom lesson as well. I chose the song for that particular client because he is at the right stage in his guitar journey to be able to handle those sort of chord changes. I teach music using the guitar basically as a tool to do that. I love talking about harmony and chord progressions and their relationship with melody and so forth, and basically strip apart how music works. And for me, David Bowie is a very important artist from that point of view. I could talk about stuff like this for hours and hours. You'll have to stop me. But also, Driving Saturday, I clearly remember seeing it on performed on TV way back. I guess it would have been 1973. There was a popular chat show at the time with a guy called Russell Harty, who's not with us anymore, and he did a couple of interviews with David Bowie, as well as having him and the Spiders in the studio to perform. And I remember, David was very funny in the answers he gave to some of the questions. But yeah, the song Driving Saturday really appealed to me way back in 1973 when it first came out. I was very young at the time. I was 13. And what appealed to me about it at the time was just the sheer otherness of it. I mean, it was like these people were from space. Yeah. I mean, England in 1972, 1973 was a very... seemed to me like a very mundane kind of existence. There was then and now there were a lot of problems in the country, but seeing Bowie and the Spiders in full colour on TV, it was like the sun coming out. Plus, it was so different to everything else that was happening in music at the time that it just captured my imagination. But more recently, this song has taken on a whole new resonance for me because I'm getting on in years. I'm an old fella now. I'm 63, going on 64. So all the stuff in that song about the bureau supply for aging men and you know, feeling myself at this stage in my life. Not having the same, you know, just sheer youthful life force that I had many years ago. This song has taken on an added layer of resonance for
Yeah.
me.
Just a couple of years behind you, so I know what you mean.
Right.
Yeah. So, you, I mentioned that I thought I was hearing a ukulele, and you just informed me that it was a ukulele. And
Yeah,
as I was trying to learn more about you to ask if you'd be willing to participate in this interview, I went to your website, and you demonstrate playing just about every type of stringed instrument that there is,
right.
and you in every style from country to classical on the guitar.
Mm.
Uh, so without without getting into a full music lesson, so I'm not a musician. And in fact, I found that so exciting. I'm going to retire from my day job in a couple of years. I might call you back and
Great.
if you're still if you have any openings. But what could you, for a non-musician, could you summarize? Um, you know, what are you doing? How do you get it? How do you get a guitar or ukulele to do what you want it to do that way?
You practice. Well, first of all, the quickest, best way of learning how to play an instrument like the guitar is to get a good teacher. And in these days of the internet, it's all too easy to just go onto YouTube and start, you know, go down a rabbit hole. And, you know, there are so many fabulous teaching videos on YouTube. But that, trust me, is a very, very bad way of going about learning to play the guitar. Because the first thing people do on YouTube is they say, right, I want to be able to play Slaughter on 10th Avenue like Mick Ronson.
Yeah,
So they'll go on there and they'll find someone who can show them, you know, where to put the fingers and so forth. But you have to be ready to play something like that. You know, obviously, you know, a lot of people will go on there wanting to play Stairway to Heaven or Hotel California, and it'll be too soon. It'll be way too soon. So you'll pick up bad habits and you'll end up 2 years later still not able to play a note, wondering why. Because there's nobody on YouTube saying, hey, you shouldn't watch this, and this video first. You should watch this one first. But unfortunately on YouTube, teachers don't really want to put lessons for absolute beginners on there because... not to put too fine a point on it, a lot of teachers want to show off their own chops.
uh-huh.
So they're going to put intermediate or advanced material on there rather than showing off, you know, how to play very, very simple stuff. My YouTube channel is the exception. I do put some very, very simple stuff on there as well. Yeah, get yourself a teacher. But it's not just about having, say, one hour lesson a week with a good teacher. It's a major investment in time. You have to make sure that you have enough time to practice each and every single day for the initial period, by which I mean until you've learnt your basic skills. Now, that varies. That could be, you know, for absolute prodigies, it could be 3 months or 6 months. But for most people, it's going to be about 2 years. So you need to set aside at least an hour a day for that whole 2 year period. If you're not able or willing to make that investment, sorry, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And how important is it to get feedback from the teacher, something that you can't get from YouTube?
Very important. Very
Yeah.
important. Yes. YouTube won't tell you that you're sitting wrong, that you're holding the guitar wrong.
Right.
And that, well, YouTube doesn't tell you anything, does it?
Doesn't
It
take any.
can't see you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a very one-sided experience. So, yeah, a teacher can save you years of blundering about on your own.
So before we get back to Bowie, I noticed that again on your website, you have a video where you go through your extensive credentials, not just in terms of playing the guitar, but also teaching the guitar.
Yeah.
And I think that that is different in England than it is in the United States, where I live.
Hmm.
What so what how was it done in England? Are those credentials that you were rattling off? What is that all about? And what's the message that you're conveying to a potential client?
Well, first of all, there are no actual credentials that you have to set yourself up as a freelance guitar teacher.
Yeah,
I don't know whether there are in the States,
I don't think so.
but yeah, I have a degree in music. I have various diplomas in guitar performance. Um, so, but I was teaching guitar long before I had either of those.
Yeah,
I started teaching in the summer vacation before my last year of high school. I'd already been playing 5 years, and I'd been in various bands. I'd done recording sessions, and I thought I knew what I was doing. And I thought, hey, at the very least, I'd be okay to teach absolute beginners, which was fine, and I was.
yeah,
But at that time, it was very much a part-time sort of activity, and for many years, I was a part-time musician, and I had other jobs as well. But for the last, it's just coming up to 11 years now, I've been exclusively focused on music, both as a performing, broadcasting, guitar player, and also as a teacher. So I thought, to give myself credibility and also confidence, self-confidence, I'd better get qualified. So I did all the exams.
yeah. So you're a teenager in the '70s, growing up
Yeah,
in London, in the London area. Did
yeah.
Bowie inspire you to learn how to play the guitar?
Absolutely, yes, yes, right. Look, here's the story. So, I'd come home from school, and there'd be various, kids' TV programs, and one of them, and this is June 1972, I believe. There was a program called Lift Off with Aisha, and yeah, Aisha was a kind of part actress, part model, part pop starlet, and she had her own TV show, and it was on what we call tea time here, which is shortly after kids get home from school. And there was David Bowie and the Spiders doing Starman, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is so different. I've never seen or heard anything like this. I mean, just the colours of the costumes and the hair and so forth. Although I believe at that performance, Woody Woodmansey hadn't had the peroxide dye yet. He still had his dark hair, although it was spiked up. And then a few weeks later, there was the iconic performance of the same song on Top of the Pops,
Yeah,
where David Bowie had to phone so on so picked on you like this, and like hundreds of thousands of kids throughout the UK, I thought he was communicating directly with me. He was connecting with all the outsiders and weirdos
yeah,
all over the country, and at that age, at the age of 12, I think everybody thinks they're an outsider or a weirdo. For it could be for any reason. I was never one of the sporty kids. I wasn't in the football team. Didn't want to be honest. I was bookish. I was interested in the arts. So I wasn't one of the faces like the mods say at school. We had our own little group of arty people, but we weren't one of the kids that were good at football and cricket and rugby and so forth. And my school was only interested in you if you were one of those kids.
Yeah.
So when I saw people, singing and playing guitars and drums and keyboards on top of the pops, I was particularly drawn to Mick Ronson. I certainly wasn't a very self-confident teenager, and I would never have seen myself in a million years being a performer like David Bowie. But the guy by the side of him with the guitar, I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, I see myself doing something like that. And I had long hair back in those days. Not dyed blonde though. not not at that stage anyway. Now, what was another amazing coincidence was a few weeks later we went on holiday. We flew to Spain as a family. This was the beginnings of the time in the 70s where ordinary working class people were finally able to afford to fly off on a 2-week foreign holiday every summer. And I'm so lucky that my family were able to do that. So we're in Benidorm in southern Spain, which is a beautiful coastal resort, seaside, sun and sand, very, very warm weather, not like London. And at our hotel, we're about a 3-minute walk from the beach. So I'm walking towards the beach with my mother, and we go past one of these tourist trap shops or stores, I think you say, where they sell all the usual things like sombrero hats and like bullfighting artifacts and
Yeah.
those bottles for pouring oil and vinegar onto your salad. And bottles of sangria, the local wine, and so forth. And also, seeing as it's southern Spain, guitars, Spanish guitars with soft nylon strings. And I'm gazing up at these guitars, and my mother, just completely out of the blue, said, "Would you like a guitar?" And I said, "Yes, please," almost without thinking about it. So yeah, 400 pesetas later, which was quite a bit of money in those days for a family like ours. Anyway, I went home with my first guitar, and the rest is history. So seeing Starman on TV and then getting a guitar a few weeks later. I just immersed myself in the guitar and music, and I would watch every TV show that had pop or rock music on it. I'd listen to the radio. I started taking lessons. There was a local youth club that had guitar lessons once a week. I started going there. And I was one of the few kids at my school that actually listened to the music teacher when we had music lessons. So like I say, the rest is history, and I've been involved in music ever since.
I'm going to ask about your playing career in a little bit, but sticking with this particular moment in time, I think you're talking about a period where Bowie was becoming somewhat well known in England, but not necessarily internationally.
Yeah.
And I was, I'm trying. This is exotic to me. This is a point. Did you think of Bowie as a local act? What was this? What
Oh,
was the scene like at that point? Like in London?
yeah. Well, yeah. Bowie. I came to discover that he was very local.
Yeah,
He was born in Brixton, which was the next town away from Clapham, where I was growing up.
yeah, yeah,
And the family moved to Bromley, and he lived in Beckenham, and all of these places are very close to where I was living in South London. They're still close to me here. In fact, my girlfriend lives in Beckenham, I was just reading Susie Ronson's book
Yeah,
the other day,
yeah,
and I was pleased to discover that Susie went to the same high school that my girlfriend did, though not at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Wow. So now you're learning to play, you're starting to play. It's the 70s,
Yeah,
turning into the 80s. And just, I've spent a total of 4 days in London in my entire life. But
right.
but the reputation of London in the 70s, there's so many acts that came out
Mm,
of that time and that place.
yeah.
What was the scene like? What were the clubs like? And sort of uh, melding into your own career, you started playing with different bands, including um, Fast Set,
Yeah.
which I, uh, I I remember from I
Wow.
remember a song. There's a compilation album that there was a
Yeah.
song Fast Set on, and I thought that I had it. I couldn't find it, but I remembered it. And so what's the journey? What are you experiencing in London in the 70s, and what's the journey from seeing Bowie on Top of the Pops to your playing on a band that achieved a fair degree of notoriety?
Right. Well, so at the time when I first discovered David Bowie, I was still 12 years old, and I was too young to go to
Yeah,
gigs. But a year, oh no, couple of years later, when I was, I think 14, 13, going on 14, finally I was allowed out of the house on my own. So I went to see Mick Ronson at Hammersmith Odeon, doing the whole obviously Main Man were trying to promote him as the upcoming guitar star. Sadly it didn't quite work out like that, but for me that was my first gig, and I
yeah,
thought, wow, this is the best thing ever. Yeah, I was so excited by that, and I read the reviews in the music press shortly afterwards, and they were a little bit sniffy, a little bit dismissive, saying that, oh, he doesn't have stage presence and so forth. But to me, it was an amazing way to start going to live concerts. Now, of course, as I got older, I started going to places like the Marquee Club, and of course that's a huge Bowie connection there as well. He used to play there back in the 60s when he was still David Jones and the Lower Third.
yeah.
And I was lucky enough to play there several times myself in the 80s later on, which was, ticking off something on the wish list. Yeah, yeah. Show me where Mick Ronson stood when they did the 1980 floor show. The things,
Yeah.
because that's where
Is
they
that where
filmed it.
that was recorded?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
That where that was recorded?
that's right. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes. Yeah, they took the Marquee Club over for a couple of nights, I think, and invited fan club people along. And I don't think that TV program ever got shown over here. You can see clips of it on YouTube that aren't edited, and
yeah.
there's no post production being done on it. But that's kind of a shame. I think it was shot for an American TV show called The Midnight Special. Am I right?
Yes, yes. That's how it
Yeah.
was shown here initially. I
Right.
don't think that it was ever fully shown. And there was also I don't I have a CD of the
Mm.
show, and the sound quality is terrible. So I
Ah,
don't think
yeah.
the show has ever been given justice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Marquis sound could be a little bit hit and miss. I mean, they did have a recording studio there, but I don't know what went wrong at the time. Yeah, that was a pity. But yeah, like I say, I started going to the Marquee Club regularly. It was at the Marquee Club that I met Mark Sebastian Jones, with whom I joined a group called the Fast Set later on. We were at a performance of a band called the League of Gentlemen, which featured Robert Fripp on guitar, Robert Fripp of King Crimson.
Yeah,
And yeah, obviously he did some Bowie collaborations as well, didn't he? So it's all connected. All musicians are connected. Yeah, so we started playing, clubs like Billy's. Billy's was where the emerging youth subculture, which later on got called the New Romantics.
Yes.
None of us called ourselves that at the time. Yeah, and it's a kind of ridiculous phrase, really. Although I'm fond of telling people that those of us that were new romantics then are old rheumatics now. So yeah, we started doing those kind of gigs. We somehow got ourselves onto this compilation album, Some Bizarre Album. We were all, fans of Bowie, Roxy Music, Mark Bolan, and T Rex. So we did a T Rex cover. We did King of the Rumbling Spires on that album, which in retrospect was a mistake. We should have done one of our own songs and then at least got some publishing royalties out of it. But there you go. You live and learn.
That's interesting in part because if you think about the time frame you're talking about and the arc, and going from someone like Mick Ronson, David Bowie, Mark Bolan, to the bands we think of with the New Romantics, the Duran Durans, and early Culture Club maybe, and the one club that I've heard of from that time is the Blitz Club, and
yes.
Right. So the style really changed, right? So from a more sort of a hard rock sound from the early 70s to that more heavily synthesizer electronic sound in the early 80s. And was your own playing evolving during that same period? Was it tracking what was happening?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was very, very into Robert Fripp. He had a thing called Frippatronics at the time. He could create an infinite sustain using tape recorder loops. I was experimenting with playing atonally so that you're not using normal musical scales, and you're able to therefore create sounds which aren't always musically harmonious. You can, there was a lot of talk at the time of getting people to have a epileptic fit or throw up and be sick with your music. So remember, this was just post-punk, right? And there was a lot of anger and tension around, and a lot of this was being expressed in music. Plus, my generation of musicians wanted to do something genuinely new and genuinely for ourselves and our generation, and we had been inspired by people using synthesizers, starting with like Kraftwerk from Germany,
yes,
Yellow Magic Orchestra from Japan, Tangerine Dream, and of course, yes, Bowie had a big part in that. I can remember the use of the Moog synthesizer on the Man Who Sold the World album and that kind of thing. So a lot of people were experimenting with electronics. Although back in those days, it wasn't easy. You had to have good skills with a soldering iron, because none of the hardware would communicate with each other. Yeah. So I was a little bit of an electronics boffin, and I used to build things in order for our sequencer to talk to our drum machine and that kind of thing. So, I was playing with a lot of effects on my guitar. Sometimes we put the sound of the guitar through the filter of a synthesizer and help it get a different sound that way. We were influenced by Roxy Music with Brian Eno in that respect as well. That's the sort of thing that they used to do. Which is ironic, because it's the total opposite to what I play as a guitar player now. It's no effects, just straight into the amp, and that's it. All the tone is from your fingers.
Yeah, wow. So you mentioned two things that I don't want to let pass and just assume everybody knows. So Robert Fripp did collaborate with Bowie, including on Scary Monsters,
Yeah.
and which is happens to be my favorite album, Scary
Mm.
Monsters. And you were talking about the atonal quality of his playing.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I've never done this, but I would imagine if you separated just his guitar parts from the songs, they would sound like noise. But
Mm.
on songs, they make the songs really,
Yeah.
um, and it's just I think a masterpiece of playing. And then the other you've mentioned Mick Ronson a few times, who's I think everybody who's watching this will know that he was the lead guitarist for the Spiders. But
Yeah.
you also mentioned Slaughter on 10th Avenue, which was his first solo album,
Mm.
where that particular song was, I think it was a Rodgers and Hart song from the
Yeah, it's
50s.
a Broadway tune, isn't
Well,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
but he turns it into like a rock anthem, and does
Mm.
amazing things with the guitar and that rendition. Anything else you want to say about either of those two guys before we move on?
Oh my goodness, Mick Ronson, such an inspiration to me. Yeah, especially when I was playing that kind of rockier guitar style that I used to in those days with the fast set. He could do so much with just finger vibrato on one of the low bass notes.
Yeah,
That other guitar players would need to play dozens and dozens of very very fast notes to put
yeah,
across a similar kind of intensity. He was a consummate musician. He was. I'm sure you're aware. He was the guy that Bowie used to get him to write out the orchestral parts.
right,
For albums like
right.
Hunky Dory and so forth. He could play piano. He could play violin. So he's such an inspirational musician on a total musical level, and he could take the raw material that David Bowie would give him. Bowie would sit there with his 12-string acoustic guitar and sing the bare bones of the song, and then Mick and the Spiders would add all the extra touches, all the fairy dust, as they
Right.
would say, and they did a fantastic job. It has been argued that had that relationship between Bowie and Ronson and Bowie and the Spiders not taken place at that time in the early 1970s, that David might not have broken through and become the global megastar that he finally became, because as we all know, he'd been knocking around the music industry since the early to mid 1960s, and had, despite producing some really quality material in those days, he hadn't actually gotten anywhere particularly,
Right.
apart from the Space Oddity single, which was viewed as a novelty song to tie in with the whole Apollo mission and so forth.
His first album from 1967, which a lot of people don't even know
Yeah, I
exists.
love that album.
You do. Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't really. It's not really a guitar heavy album.
No, it's not. It's not. Apart from it's as far as guitar playing is concerned, there's some nice folky stuff on there.
Yeah,
Some nice
but
folky finger
it doesn't
picking.
sound anything like what Mick Ronson would bring later.
No, absolutely, yeah. But I love the English whimsical nature of a lot of those songs. Yeah, Uncle Arthur. Oh, When I Live My Dream. See, when I went to the local record store in order to buy Ziggy Stardust,
Yeah,
they'd sold out. They couldn't sell me a copy. The only thing they had left was a cassette tape called The World of David Bowie,
yeah,
which was a compilation of early tracks on the Diram album from the very first David Bowie album. So that was the first David Bowie product that I actually owned, and I wore that tape out. So all of those songs, "Let Me Sleep Beside You," like I mentioned, "Karma Man." I love those songs to this day. I think the next thing that happened was I borrowed some albums from a guy at school. I think he had yeah, Space Odyssey, Man Who Sold the World, and Ziggy Stardust, and I tape recorded them so
Yeah.
I could keep them. And yeah, my goodness, that's it. I was a committed Bowie fan
Yeah.
by then, and just the sheer diversity of the different styles of music. You've got to admire him for that on a musical level. For a start, yeah. Aside from all the other qualities that he brought.
So yeah, yeah, I'm thinking about you, even at that time when you get to when you think about the first album, and then the album that's today known as Space Oddity.
Right.
That was followed by The Man Who Sold the World, then Hunky
Yes.
Dory. Those are four
Yes.
very, very different albums. The one is really
Yeah.
not like the next. Yeah.
Well, Man Who Sold the World, like you say, and I agree. I mean, yeah, they invented heavy metal.
Yeah. People don't think of
Yeah,
David Bowie as really heavy
my
metal.
goodness, and God, yeah, the you know the beginning of She Shook Me Cold
Yes.
with that you know, so Mick Ronson famously used a wah-wah pedal as a tone filter to get the tone out of the Les Paul and the Marshall amp. But that was one of the few occasions where he actually manipulated the you know the control to get this you know what we call in the business the signature lick, the intro guitar lick that draws you in and engages you and gets you to listen to the rest of the song. And that was like nothing I'd ever heard. And then the opening chords as Bowie starts to sing, that's pure heavy metal
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah. Wow. So he was at the beginning of that movement too.
Yeah,
So here we are. And we're still talking about David Bowie. You're putting on videos. You're using them to teach. I do this blog, right? I write about David Bowie every day, and it seems from where I'm sitting that um, he's held in higher regard and is greater interested in him today than maybe the last 30 years of his life.
yeah.
Why do you think that is? And I'm going to ask you after you answer this. I'm going to ask you about the video you posted about what's happened after he died. But why do you think he continues to inspire people or continues to hold our interest and maybe even more so?
Yeah, because there are multiple generations of people that have grown up with some version or other of David Bowie in their lives.
Yeah,
There would have been people before me that remember him playing the Marquee Club in the mid 1960s. Dana Gillespie is you know would be one of those people.
yeah,
That's where they first met, of course. You know, and remembering his band supporting the Yardbirds and gigs like that. Then there would have been the people that got into him, you know, during the whole Beckenham Arts Lab period and Space Oddity and so forth. And then there was my generation of Bowie fans that very much connected with him after Starman and continued on that amazing journey right through to Diamond Dogs and pin-up sort of era. And then we were a little bit, some of us, you know, my generation of Bowie fans, some of us were a little bit bemused by Young Americans, what came next, and then Station to Station. So those albums, for me, are growers. I didn't like them at first, but I've grown to love them over the years. And then moving on, there's a whole generation of Bowie fans younger than me that got into him in the whole 80s period with Let's Dance.
yeah,
Oh my goodness, we're skipping over the whole, you know, Berlin trilogy, aren't we?
yeah,
That got me to reconnect with David Bowie big time. I love those albums, you know, Heroes and Low and so forth, Lodger. but yeah, then there was the whole Let's Dance thing, um, and that's when he started to achieve huge global commercial success. And yeah, I appreciated what he was doing then, but for me it wasn't as creatively imaginative as my period of Bowie, which
Yeah,
is really hunky dory, Man Who Sold the World, Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, Diamond Dogs. That's
right.
my Bowie.
Yeah,
But then and then on and off there'd be other things. I remember the film Absolute Beginners, and he was a very big part of that. There's his
yeah.
whole acting career as well. Do you remember the movie The Hunger?
Oh
I
yes.
thought he was amazing in that
Yeah.
as the aging vampire character.
Yeah, I like that movie very much, and I think
Yeah.
there are some movies like The Man Who Fell to Earth that I think are
Mm.
are more highly regarded, but I think The Hunger might be
Yeah.
the most entertaining movie that David Bowie was ever in.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, Man Who Fell to Earth is a very arty movie
Yes,
by a
yeah,
very arty director. So you've got to have your highbrow sort of attitude on to watch that and get enjoyment out of it. I remember Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. I think
yeah,
he did a pretty good performance in that as well, and yeah, that was with another of my musical heroes, Ryuki Sakamoto of the Yellow Magic Orchestra. So it's great to see both of them collaborating on screen with that. And then later on, there's a whole generation of kids here today that know him from that Goblin movie. What was that called?
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, I can't take that seriously, that one, but
yeah.
but
At
I
least he
believe he does a
sings.
good job in it.
Yeah,
But and then you have the whole glass spider thing, and then of course he disappeared from the scene for a while, and eventually came back. And wow, what a way to come back!
right.
And that final album, Black Star, is is
Yeah,
is is for me on a musical level and an artistic level among his best.
yeah, I agree.
And I'm still trying to figure out what it's all about. But
Yeah,
but my goodness, he was always well, not always. There were times when he was, I guess, deliberately making commercial music, to safeguard his financial future, and fair
yeah,
play to him for that. Of course, we all need to do that. But to come back with something at the cutting edge of high musical art, what an achievement,
yeah.
and so sad that we lost him shortly afterwards.
So we lost him days after the album came out, and
Yeah.
fairly recently, you posted a video essay
Mm.
about all the bad things that happened since he died. And
Yeah.
so, first of all, do you think that was there's a causal relationship, or
Um, yeah, I slightly tongue in cheek,
yeah,
but yeah, let's look at this. So David Bowie dies in 2016, and since then, I don't know how things are over there in Albany, New York, but everything's gone wrong over here. You can't drive your car without the wheels falling into a pothole. The government are absolutely useless. And for one thing, they did this stupid Brexit thing, which has destroyed the British music industry. So many things have gone wrong, and COVID,
mhm,
and since then, war. What's happening to the world? It looks like
right,
we're on the verge of World War III. My generation grew up at a time when we were still in the period of rebuilding the country after World War II. And, the thought that the governments of the world would allow this sort of thing to happen again is just incomprehensible to somebody like me. I mean, you feel like getting them and banging their heads together. So I don't know in reality whether there's a causal link between David Bowie and dying and all these things happening. Probably not. But if you were that kind of superstitious person, and I absolutely am not, then you might start to make that connection.
Yeah, I would definitely put it on the list of bad things that have happened since that year.
Yeah.
And you might be being polite, but by not mentioning it. But the whole Donald Trump phenomena is another one of those terrible things that's happened since that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Oh dear.
yeah. So we've covered a lot of territory thus far, and so I'm gonna start to wrap it up. But I wanted to just ask a couple closing questions.
Hmm.
First is going back to what you do in part is you teach guitar, and
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to learn from you that doesn't live in London, is
Yeah.
that an option? Yeah, tell us, how do we reach you? How do we sign up?
Well, you send me an email, info@pfmusic.co, and we see if we can make something work with the time difference.
Yeah,
That's going to be the main obstacle, because for example, New York, are you 5 hours or 6 hours behind us?
five.
5 hours, yeah, yeah. So I'm a full-time teacher. I teach from 10 in the morning until 9 at night. So but obviously my most popular times are the evenings, after people come home from work, or and late afternoons, kids are coming home from school and so forth. So at the moment we'd struggle to find a slot that's evening for me and afternoon for you. But I have had a few people in the States do crazy things like getting up at before the crack of dawn to have lessons with
Yeah,
me. So
yeah.
never say never. It's and it's always worth asking.
And I will put a link to your website
Thank you.
on the post for this video, because after hearing from you and taking a look at that website, you might have a couple new customers. So
Great.
yeah, so I want to thank you. Any last thoughts? Any last words?
Well, I think David Bowie is one of those iconic creative artists that people are still going to be talking about hundreds of years from now.
Yeah.
For me, on a purely musical level, it's all to do with his wonderful command of musical harmony. His chord progressions are like nobody else's. Sometimes I have people. I have this discussion with people, students of mine, and they say, "Oh well, surely he would just sit there randomly playing chords on a guitar, and then eventually he'd figure out something that sounded nice and use that." And I'm no, this sort of thing doesn't happen by accident. Yeah, you might remember there was a whole question of how involved Bowie was in the creation of the songs for the Man Who Sold the World
Right.
album, and for a while Tony Visconti was saying, "Oh, it was so frustrating because David was too busy cuddling up with Angie to come to the studio to do his vocals and so forth. So together with Mick Ronson and Woody Woodmansey was on that. And this was before Trevor Bolder, of course, because Tony Visconti was playing bass himself. They were working up the arrangements and so forth, but let's not forget that Bowie had already written the bare bones of the songs with the chord arrangements and so forth prior to that. And look at those interviews with Rick Wakeman about his work on the Life on Mars song. the chord, because that was originally like a parody of My Way by
My
Frank
way.
Sinatra.
Yeah.
You'll know the whole story about writing "Even a Fool Learns to Love," the
Yes.
English lyrics for the French song "Comme d'habitude" by
Yeah.
Claude Francois. So the opening chords of "Life on Mars" are the exact same opening chords of that song that became My Way. But then at a certain point, it goes to a completely unexpected place. In technical terms, it changes key. But it's not the usual sort of key change that a lesser composer would have put in. It's just crazy and so original. And he's not done there, and the song keeps moving and keeps changing key. And for me, it's things like that. For example, one of my very favourite songs is "Lady Grinning Soul,"
Sure.
and my goodness, the chord changes in that there's just no one else that would write chord changes like that but David Bowie. It's just incredible. There's influence there of Spanish flamenco music. There's influence of romantic era piano music like Chopin and so forth with Mike Garson. What Mike Garson does on that record is just incredible.
Yeah.
And then there's the amazing Rono acoustic guitar solo that he just improvised on the spot, because famously David Bowie in the studio would get bored very quickly, and if you hadn't cut it in 3 takes, that's it, he was done with it. So that's enormous pressure on a studio musician. So you've got to get it right first time, or if not then second time. And to come up with a solo so beautiful over weird chord changes like that is just next level musicianship.
Yeah. Wow.
So thank you, Rono, as well as Bowie.
Yeah. All right. My very final question, which I ask everybody: what is your favorite David Bowie album and song?
This changes as time goes by, but I think the most consistently brilliant album is Hunky Dory.
Yeah.
Yeah. That every single note is so impeccably crafted. I've always been very interested in the craft of recording music as well, and Ken Scott did an amazing job on that. The way it's recorded, the production choices of the instrumentation, just the sheer quality of the songs, the chord progressions again, and just the sheer weirdness of some of it, like the Bewley Brothers.
Yes.
Just incredible. I can listen to that all day long. As far as favorite songs, there are so many, so many. I mean, there are songs I love to play as a guitarist, like Ziggy Stardust, for example.
Yeah.
That's got such a great riff, as has Rebel Rebel. But I already mentioned Life on Mars, the incredible chord progression on that, and Lady Grinning Soul.
Sure.
Those have got to be right up there. But it's difficult to pick out, one.
So much good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Pete. This has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I think you and I could probably talk for hours, but not everybody could watch a video for hours. So, and if we have a chance again, I might ask for you to demonstrate with one of those guitars you're surrounded by.
Oh, sure.
This has been wonderful. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I enjoyed driving Saturday. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Yes, keep in touch and keep up the good work with the blog. Doing something every day, that's dedication. So well done, and keep it up.
Thanks.